All right, this will be pretty short and sweet today because if you have not already looked at 60 here, you'll see that there really isn't new material. We are just trying to review, hopefully learn from mistakes made the first time through, and really master these quadratics before our unit test. So in your factor corner, you've got a factor to solve, so continuing to work on that. Then in the next section, we have a couple standard form quadratics where it asks you to graph and reminds you of the steps that you would use to graph. So for each of these, and I said this before, but I'm going to remind you again, if all you do is draw the graph, that's not good enough. You have to do all of the four things that it asks. Plotting the points and graphing the parabola is only 1/4 of the problem. So first thing you're going to do is that axis of symmetry opposite of b over 2a. Then you're going to use that equation to find the vertex. Remember, the x-coordinate is what you got from step A, and then the y-coordinate you get by simply plugging the x-coordinate in to the standard form equation that you're given. Part C, determine the zeros of the function. So remember that we do this by doing our solving by factoring. So all you do is set x squared minus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Solve that. That gives you the zeros. Remember, these are the x-coordinates of the x-intercepts. We talked about that last time. Again, that zeros, roots, solutions, x-coordinates of the x-intercepts, all of those are the same, and we find them by solving. So both of these that you're given today are able to be solved by factoring. So you've got just two of those to practice. Then in your next section, we're going to practice our completing the square again. So I'm going to go through here one more time, all the steps that we talked about with completing the square in the last video. So step 1 is always going to be to collect all my variable terms on the left and all my constant terms on the right. So this positive 20 is a constant. I'm going to move it to the other side using subtraction. It's opposite operation. Cross those out. I lined it up because it did have a like term over here that's going to need combined with. Then this 7x on the right, that's a variable term. That needs to be moved over to the left. So I'm going to subtract 7x on both sides to get rid of that. So remember, x squareds and x's are not like terms, so leave those separate. So I've got x squared minus 7x on the left side. I've got 32 minus 20 on the right side, which gives me 12. And that's the end of step 1. Step 2 is to add blanks to both sides, because whatever we do to one side of an equation, we must also do to the other. Once I draw my blanks, then I need to figure out how to fill it in. Remember, it is always the b value, which is the linear coefficient, divided by 2 and squared. So in this case, -7 divided by 2 and squared. Most of the ones we've practiced have been whole numbers here. This one is not, it's a fraction. That doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means it's, going to need us to be a little bit more careful. So, -7 when I square it is positive 49. 2 when I square it is 4. So 49 over 4 is what I get. Remember, whatever goes in that left side blank, I'm going to put in that right side blank as well. So that is the end of that step. Next step is to factor the left side as a PST. Now, it does not matter that this is a fraction. So it still works the same way. PSTs are a single parenthesis with a squared on it. Square root of the front goes in the front, so square root of x squared is x. Sign of the middle goes in the middle, so that's a minus. And square root of the back goes in the back. So the square root of 49 over 4 is 7 over 2. On the right side, I need to combine like terms. And yes, it is absolutely okay for you to use a calculator here. So you can either, use the Desmos calculator or a handheld calculator, but we do need to keep it in fraction form. So make sure that your answer stays in fraction form. But we're just going to add 12 to 49 over 4, which gives us 97 over 4. So 97 over 4. Next is to square root both sides, remembering that when we do that, we need to put in a plus or minus on that right side. On the left side, the square root and the squared undo each other. So I've got x minus 7 over 2 over there. Over here, again, don't forget that plus or minus. When I have a fraction under a square root, I really just square root the top and square root the bottom. So square root of 97 over the square root of 4. So when I go to simplify this, I know that the square root of 4 is 2. And I know that 97 is a prime number. So when I go to simplify that, now if you didn't know 97 was prime, you would of course try to divide out factors to simplify the radical if you could, but hopefully you pretty quickly would figure out that you cannot. Because 97 is a prime number. So now last thing to do is to add 7/2 to both sides so that I can get my x alone. So there's two different correct ways that you can write this. Again, this is a plus or minus in there, and you can't add regular plain numbers to irrational numbers. So I can either write it 7/2 plus or minus the square root of 97 over 2. Or if you prefer, you could write x equals 7 plus or minus radical 97 with just one denominator of 2. It does not matter. They're the same thing, and they're both considered simplest forms. So either of those formats would be correct. So that gives you an idea of what to do if your b value is a fraction, or when you do b divided by 2 squared when you get a fraction. That's going to happen anytime b is odd. And lucky for you, the two that you have to do, the b value is even. So shouldn't be too bad for you there. The rest of these are practice for the state test, just retyped. So various practice problems from released items there. All right, use the rest of your time wisely, since this video was certainly not very long, and get the rest of this practice finished.